Delay, we're at 6:09. Thank you for your patience, Carl. 6:09, welcome, Mr. Daigle, and the floor is yours.
Why, thank you very much. I'll introduce myself. This is Randy Daigle. Didn't think I'd be back here again, but unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I am. And fortunate enough, I'm eligible. I'm the chairman for the JFK Building Committee. I'm going to have these gentlemen introduce themselves, but then we're going to go through a series of things to explain from the referendum to where we are today. So let's see.
If you guys wouldn't mind just your name and title, and that'd be great for folks watching.
Chris Cycli, Construction, is this one?
Yeah.
Chris Cycli, Construction Solutions Group, Owners Project Manager.
Jim Hoagland with JCJ Architecture. I'm the project architect on the project.
It's not working?
It's not working.
Does it not work, or is it?
Testing.
No, it is.
You guys got it?
Good evening. My name is Amar Shamas. I'm project executive with Gilbane Building Company. We're the construction managers on the project.
Bruce Kellogg, JCJ Architecture.
Welcome.
So, like I said, my name is Randy Daigle. I'm fortunate enough to be the chairman of the JFK Middle School renovation. I want to just start from pretty much the beginning, and I want to pay tribute to the pre-ref committee, because if it wasn't for the pre-ref committee a little over almost 2 years ago, this project wouldn't be where it is today. It would never have gotten passed again. So we're reaping the benefits of all the hard work that committee did, and some of the committee members are on this committee now. The pre-ref committee members are on this committee. As you all know, it passed last November, and at that point, we solicited applications for committee members, people who wanted to be members of the building committee. We had tremendous amount of applications, which was great. We ended up picking a series of individuals that we felt can contribute to every aspect of this building, of the needs and requirements to design it and to get it constructed. We have teachers on it, we have council members, we have contractors, we have people that are in the trades, we have engineers. Everybody on that committee is contributing something. It's a tremendous committee, and I've been fortunate enough to chair all the school committees that this town's had, and I've been fortunate enough to surround myself with some pretty awesome people, and I felt we did it again this time. So there are some committee members here this evening in the back. If you guys can just stand up and acknowledge.
Speech.
I had to tell Scott he had to sit back there this time, not up there.
Not sure the camera turns.
So like I said, once the referendum was passed, we established a building committee. Our first task at that point was to meet with the town and determine the scope and the ed spec requirements. And I'll have the owner's rep talk a little bit more about the ed spec requirements. But the day after the referendum was passed, we started boots on ground. We met with the individuals, we met with the teachers, we met with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the principal. We met with every user, department head, to determine what the actual use and actual requirements that they're looking for. It's really easy as an architect to draw pretty pictures, but if it's not functionable, we didn't do our job. So each of these members of the team will discuss exactly what we've done to get us to where we are right now. One thing we are doing, which is similar to what we did at the high school, we're using a delivery method called CMR, Construction Manager at Risk. Traditionally, you do what's called a design bid build, where you hire an architect, they design the building, and then you put it out the bid, and cross your fingers that it comes in on or below budget. By doing a construction manager at risk, we hired the architect, We hired the owner's rep, which is different than a CA, and I'll explain that in a minute. And we hired the construction manager. All together, these three teams are going to be designing this building, and they're designing it with cost and scope and program requirements all together. We've already did our first estimate. We're in we're in design development now. We're out of schematic design. So the architect independently did a estimate on where they feel we are in construction. The contractor, the construction manager did an estimate. And then we all met together, and they did it independently, so nobody knew what each number was. We met. It was a good 6-7 hour meeting. We reconciled any differences, and I'll let Chris explain. But we are still under where we needed to be at this phase. We anticipate staying that way, but that's the luxury of having a construction manager and architect work together. One's not designing without understanding the cost or repercussions of what they're designing. So we did this at the high school. It worked out tremendous, and we're hoping the same results will come. Like I said, one of the biggest things we did is that we met with all the staff. This is not designed. The architects didn't take the pre-ref design and say, we can clean it up and add stuff to it. They started from scratch. We did not use one thing that we had from the old one. The other one didn't quite work, and we didn't want to try to find the errors. We started from scratch. These architects went and spoke with everybody, and then they came up with their own floor plan, presented it to the building committee. We went back and forth through schematic design to an area we found it was acceptable, and we met or exceeded all the code requirements, program requirements, and ed spec requirements. So I'll let Jim and Bruce from JCJ Architects take it over and then start explaining and show you pictures of where we are right now and what it looks like.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Is this on? Everybody hears me?
Welcome. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I think Randy's covered a lot of important points, but let me mention a couple things that many people are aware of, many are not. The team that we have in place, you see JCJ here and the key players in the team, but there's other key players. We have a whole team of engineering consultants that are on board with their specific disciplines, such as structure, mechanical systems, electrical systems, plumbing, technology, security, etc. All those individuals have become an important part of the team and are involved in the meetings and conversations that have been held and continue to be held with the end users and key stakeholders. The other important entity that's involved, it's sitting with us side by side and actually has been meeting with us on several occasions, which is a little different than their usual process, but they are very involved in this project, is the Office of School Construction Grants. They are the ones that at the end of the day approve the project for the reimbursement as we move forward through the process. And I mention that because it's been a very engaged and informative process, and they are very much hands-on with us on this particular project. The other piece I want to mention is we've put together a calendar schedule. We don't have it here on the presentation. We didn't want to bore you, but essentially there's a lot of days that we color in the days when there's events happening with this team or components of the team, and most of those days in that calendar schedule are not white, but they have all sorts of colors in them because of all the events that are happening. Whether it's meetings with OSCG, whether it's planning to submit for Enfield regulatory process, whether it's just these teams meeting, etc. So we started the process, as Randy said, by meeting with the key stakeholders, talking to them. What are your visions of this building? What's important to you? Continuation of the conversation we had way back for the pre-referendum. That's been ongoing. The second piece of the equation is your existing building. We were able to get some floor plans to it, some existing documentation, but we had a company we hired to come in and do what they call a building scan. What can we see by scanning now? Like an ultrasound. That technology has been great to use. We can find things hidden in walls. Not everything, but you can find a lot of things in walls and help inform your decisions now, as opposed to finding things during construction and saying, "Oops, what do we do now?" So that has been in place. And then the last piece of information is, as we're going through doing all this, obviously we're putting together presentations and starting to design the details on this building throughout the process, presenting it back to Randy and the committee and whoever else needs to see it so we can keep moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim to talk about the design pieces and where we are to date on that.
Great, thanks. Can you hear me okay? All right. Well, I think one of the important things, we're talking about a lot of the team members here, not only at the table. One of our first steps at the beginning was to talk to all the staff as well. We spent a good 2.5 days interviewing staff. We had a whole list of programming meetings that we went through. We wanted to talk to the gym teacher. We wanted to talk to the administrators. We wanted to talk to teachers. We wanted to talk to special ed. We wanted to talk to the nurse. It was a whole list, and it covered a lot of issues, and it really set up a lot of ground rules for us moving forward, and it also informed some of the decisions, the big decisions that we made as we moved some of the program from one part of the building to the next. So I think that the team expands well beyond what you see here, and we've become very reliant on the feedback from everybody that lives in that building. It's a tired old building. It needs help. The people that live there every single day know it best. They know what works there, what doesn't work. And back in May and June, before the students left at the end of the year, it was great to observe and see how everything worked. And then during the summer, July, August, we really were able to take some corrective measures and really dive into our schematic design. And then when the kids came back and administrators came back in September, the last month or so, we've really been able to bounce some big ideas off of them, get feedback, and progress well into design development at this point. So we're going to back up just a little bit. The overall program, the idea is that we're going to renovate this building to new. We tried to minimize the amount of new square footage that we're introducing to the building. There's a lot of the building that works well, but by reducing the overall new square footage, we're actually able to reduce costs, and that's one of the reasons that the referendum did pass last November. So these are just some raw numbers that you can see here. About 18,000 square feet of new construction, and that's essentially the new auditorium and the public lobby on the north end of the building. The middle school is constructed or structured in teams. So each of the two-story classroom wings houses 16 classrooms. So you see the numbers there, 36 classrooms, 12 science spaces, 4 science classrooms for each grade. So that's the way it's basically broken down. So another big thing that we talked about was how the site currently works. You have about 28 buses coming in, looping all the way up and around that building, stacking in the morning, stacking in the afternoon. There is currently some crossover where parents are dropping off in one lot, the buses are coming in. So safety was a big concern as we came into it, and that was one of the things that we heard repeatedly over and over was, we're concerned about safety on the site. How do the kids move in? So we were able to analyze that. We spent some time watching the vehicular paths and how people moved in and out of the site. And I think we've made some very simple moves that corrected a lot of the issues out there. The buses are currently going to move in a clockwise position, much like they do now, but we've actually separated if you can see at the lower point where you see the van loop, there's a small circle on the south side of the building there. We've actually continued the bus loop all the way to the south of the site, and right now it loops in tight with the building, and that's one of the crossovers. So currently, what we're proposing is that the parents are secluded to the south lot, and they will loop in on a one-way, drop right at the new front door, and then right back out. So the buses and parent cars never cross. They're completely two separate paths, which really simplifies the safety and really kind of guarantees that students are in and out of that site pretty quickly. The other big thing is reorienting all the fields. There's a big expansive space back there. Many of the fields are not oriented correctly, kind of east-west. So we're going to reseed that entire back area, work on some of the drainage, and then reorient the field. So you can see right now we have 2 full-size competition fields, we have 2 practice fields, a full-size baseball field, and a softball field. And we're actually introducing 2 basketball courts in that area, which are currently on the north side of the site, up near the parking lot on the north side. So we're using the existing basketball courts to expand parking where we're putting the auditorium. We felt that we needed more public parking for after-hours events on the north side of the building. So since the basketball courts are all graded flat, we think that's a pretty simple solution, cost-effective solution to expand about 50 parking spaces up on that side of the building. And then we'll rebuild the basketball courts down closer to the other play fields. And it really kind of zones the site out quite nicely. So all the athletics occur on the east side of the site.
Now, one of the things by JCJ introducing the basketball courts a little bit outside of the drive-in area, we didn't have to do a retaining wall. That saved about $3 million of a retaining wall, which is, you really can't see anything. It's just money spent. So by having them relocate the basketball courts to being several feet lower and then transition flat and then bring it down a little bit to the other fields, that not only were we able to not have to put retaining walls, but we were able to make the entire down ball fields now all ADA accessible, handicap accessible. We have sidewalks down there now, but they're not steep. They're within the code requirements. So by doing that little changing of the basketball location, we were able to save some significant amount of money.
Yeah, it was a really simple move, but I think it solved a lot of big problems out on the site. So moving to the building, this is just a schematic of the existing program. So you can see where the existing gym is, everything's labeled. The existing pool is going to come offline, and we always looked at that as a surplus of square feet. How can we better utilize that within the building? So when we get to the existing, or the proposed plans, I'll show you exactly how we did do that. The existing cafeteria, the existing auditorium is obviously right in the center hub of that building. Very difficult for the public to come in for a performance. They have to pass through half of the building to get to that most public part or program piece. So that was a big indicator, and that informed us as to building a brand new auditorium. And I'll expand on the plans a little bit more, but that's just a schematic as to what you're living with today. Moving into the proposed plans, you can see how things were transformed a little bit. One of the ideas here was that we felt that the tired old building had to be transformational. With the amount of money you're spending in this building, it needed to feel different, it needed to feel new, it needed to feel exciting. And some of that excitement needed to be generated with moving big chunks of program around. With Gilbane on board, we had a lot of discussions about a student-occupied school here. There's 1,200 students in the building, and we have to be thoughtful about how we move them throughout the building during construction. Some of the big moves inform that. So one of the first things we did was propose building a brand new auditorium. And this one in the upper left corner of this building, kind of the north side of the building, the plan's turned a little, affords much better sight lines. The back row of that auditorium is not too far. The proportions of the auditorium are much more intimate. We got 607 seats in that auditorium, and it's well proportioned. We're going through an exercise where we're maximizing all the sight lines from the seats to the farthest to the side as well as farthest in the back. It's really going to be a nice gem to give back to the community. I think it's going to get a lot of use there. The other big move here is by placing the auditorium where we did, you can now create a public lobby and have a direct entrance into the gymnasium. So if you look how that part of the building is zoned, you got the auditorium, gymnasium, and cafeteria all on that side of the building to help with that after hours and weekend use. You can open up that part of the building, shut down the rest of the building, solving that one big problem. If you have something going on in the evening and the auditorium is in the middle, everybody's wandering through the building. The rest of the building starts to structure out quite nicely. The media center seems to work very well where it is. It's one of the better spaces in the building. We chose to leave that right where it is. The innovation lab is a great space. That's staying right where it is. But since the admin is going to be moving, and right now, that there's pieces of admin kind of all over the building. There was a strong desire to consolidate all that. So we made the decision to move all of the administrative pieces over to where the existing cafeteria is and create a new main entry to the school. So now we're grouping the principal, all the guidance, the nurse, some special ed functions, and a bunch of the support staff, social workers, all in that main office. So it facilitates communication between them, and anybody visiting the building knows exactly where they need to go. The front door is very obvious. You check in, and that's going to help with security a lot. You're coming into a single entrance. There's a security booth right there. You scan IDs, check in, and nobody else is allowed into the building outside of that one single entry. Once we move the admin over to where the cafeteria was, it frees up that entire existing admin wing, and we're able to expand the world language program. So now we're putting 6 or 7 world language classrooms all together in that one wing. It works really well, departmentalized. All the teachers can facilitate and talk to each other. And then the 3 classroom wings kind of stay as they are, fully renovated. We'll be able to move 400 kids out of each of them into temporary classrooms and move them around the building. The other big move is once the new auditorium does get built, it frees up that middle hub. And what we're proposing is to move all of the tech ed spaces into that center hub and really put them on display. The tech ed programs now are highly technical, so we have robotics labs, the materials testing. It's really interesting stuff educationally right now, and we want to put that on display as if it's a display case. And as the kids circulate around the hub, we're opening up that existing auditorium wall with glass and overhead doors so that all of that learning can really spill out into the classroom, the circulation all around there. Second floor, you're just seeing the 3 classroom wings. The second floor remains essentially how it is. I have a couple of blow-ups. We can talk about the middle school model puts on each wing or each floor of the classroom wing puts 2 teams. So you have 3 traditional classrooms and a science room. And that's how the middle school currently operates. That's how they want to continue operating in the future. So you have 4 teams per classroom wing, and we're able to create a wing for each grade. So 6th grade will have their own wing, 7th grade will have their own wing, and 8th grade will have their own wing. In order to create the space within there, we actually moved some of the administrators that are currently there and some of the art rooms out of the wing, and we're able to take advantage of some of the extra space in the hub. So you can see at where the classroom wing enters the hub, we've actually moved the assistant principals and all the teacher workrooms. And I have a couple of 3D renderings that'll kind of show you how we're opening that up with glass. So you're putting eyes on the street, and it becomes almost a gateway for that grade. They have to pass right by the assistant principal and the teacher's workroom. There's always going to be some eyes there to see who's in and out of that wing. It also facilitates a lot of supervision in the hub. So as the kids are leaving that and going to any of their specials, there's going to be 3 assistant principals right in that area, in that circulation area. The new main office, you can see how everything is grouped together. I mentioned that it's the principal, the reception, secure. There's going to be a new security booth right at the front door. The nurse is right there. The 2 pink classrooms that you see are self-contained special ed rooms, which the nurse spends a lot of time back and forth. So I think that was a really important adjacency to create. The nurse was actually thrilled that she was right next door to all those spaces as opposed to having to run halfway across the building to go help some of these kids when they need it. The other thing is we've created a back door out of that area that's immediately adjacent to the special ed room and the nurse, so that in case a student does get sick or needs to get out of the building very quickly or potentially to the hospital. The van loop that you saw on the site plan, the circular loop right off the parent loop, stops right at that back door. So we now have the ability to pull up an ambulance right behind the admin. It can actually be very discreet. There's only going to be half of a classroom wing that would see an ambulance sitting there. The rest is shielded from the rest of the building. And the nurse was pretty happy about being able to discreetly get students in and out, out of the building in the case of an emergency. I think one of the most dynamic spaces is going to be the transformation of the existing auditorium into these tech ed spaces. So you can see there's going to be 5 significant classrooms. 2 of them are materials testing. We got the robotics lab, some computer-oriented spaces. And I have some 3D views that'll kind of explain this. I think this diagram also shows how all the purple spaces where you have teachers, staff, and administrators, and how populated that circular area is with the adults in the building for supervision purposes. The public spaces, I mentioned one of the big moves was grouping the auditorium, cafeteria, and gymnasium all together. And I think this affords us a real great opportunity to create a new front door, a public presence in the school. Right now, visitors could potentially drive around that building 2 or 3 times and not really know where the front door is. Where's the auditorium? How do I get in? This renovation, I think, is going to make it really evident that, if grandma and grandpa are coming to see their grandson at the winter or Christmas or winter play, they're going to know exactly where to go into the building. So you can, yeah.
Now, one of the other things that was a very big concern of ours was by having the public in the building, as it does right now, they're allowed to walk freely around the entire building before or after event. The custodians, they had such a tough job after an event. They literally had to go around in every classroom to make sure somebody didn't get lost. There wasn't anybody around before they close up. So they had hours spent of downtime just walking the building, making sure nobody was in there. By doing what we did, the location, putting all the public access, the parking to the side for all this, we can lock off the rest of the building. There's no access to the rest of the building if there's a sport event, if there's a theatrical event going on. Everything is in one location, and it secures the rest of the building.
Yep. In this area, we're actually able to add quite a few toilets as well. The locker rooms needed the toilets, and because of how we have positioned them, they're open to all the public venues. So the auditorium has direct access to the bathrooms, the gym does, as well as the cafeteria, which I think is a big advantage. So as we got into the design, at first it was really a plan exercise as we were sitting listening about adjacencies, but we very quickly got into the 3D study of all these spaces. And the 3D scanning that Bruce was talking about, I think, was incredibly helpful. It came, and then we were able to spend a good amount of time in the building over the summer when there's no students in there, verifying a lot of this, doing our modeling, and then we were able to present 3D drawings to the committee to try to help them understand how these spaces were going to look. So this is a fairly simple diagram showing that all the new construction. So you can see the auditorium. There's 6 blocks of seats, about 100 seats in each of those areas. The public lobby, which affords a direct access into the auditorium or the gymnasium. We're going to be introducing some trophy cases, billboards for the upcoming plays and things like that. It's going to be a really, really dynamic space. And we also started doing some 3D renderings where we're starting to talk about materials and what that new auditorium is really going to look like. So, we've spent a fair amount of time with the committee, back and forth talking about the character of it, how can we improve this. This is kind of what we're thinking. And I think that's really some of the back and forth and collaborativeness between the construction manager, owner's rep, the building committee, and everybody involved, as well as the staff. The principals have been very involved. A lot of feedback from teachers and specifically music teachers on images like this. This is another view from, this is the very back seat, and you can see you're as far away from the play as you can get, but you're still not that far away. We think the proportions of this auditorium are really, really nice. So this is one of the drawings that we developed for the transformation of the center hub. You can get a sense for that circular corridor that wraps all the way around. And by doing the demo that we're proposing, we're now able to introduce some new spaces. The robotics lab, this is specifically the science and technology classroom, and we're introducing a lot of glass to make that connection. It really becomes that display case, put learning on display. And it also allows the learning to spill out into the corridor and kind of have that efficiency of space. We're always looking for places where kids can work on projects. So you see some of the flexible furniture that can be moved, rearranged, and we're really taking advantage of what currently is some wasted space in the building. Just another view of some of the furniture that we're anticipating. All of it's going to be highly movable, agile. The kids are actually going to be able to rearrange it. If they want to work on a long project, they can turn those tables, line them up, and do some physics projects and things like that. This is just a view of one of the classrooms that would be renovated. One of the characteristics in the existing building is there's clear stories that are about 5 feet high up to the ceiling. The teachers really seem to like that, just some shared light back and forth between the classroom and the corridor. The corridors don't feel too constricted, and we wanted to maintain that. The ceilings are actually going to get a little bit lower, and I think currently the clear story windows are about 3'6" high. We're going to maintain the bottom of the clear story, and I think it's only going to go up about 2'4", 2'5", because we're introducing ductwork to these classroom wings. So the ceilings are going to come down in the corridor. We're trying to maintain that 9-foot height in the classrooms to make sure that they still feel open and airy and welcoming. So we're utilizing 3D images like this to have the teachers give us feedback as to the amount of cabinets, where the monitor goes, how the teaching wall is working. Very interactive and very helpful when we're working with the staff. Here's a 3D image of one of the science rooms, and you can see once again we're anticipating a lot of movable furniture. These rooms are really easily rearranged, highly dynamic. All the utilities will be at the perimeter. The middles of these classrooms are really, really flexible. And then as we talked about some of the exterior, everybody kind of knows the exterior character. There's a lot of brick out there. You can see, there's certain proportions for the canopies and detailing with some of the columns. Typical school of its era. And I don't think we can do much to completely change and transform the character because we're only building a small amount of new construction. So we really want to recognize the materials. So we've spent a fair amount of time out there matching some bricks and trying to match colors because we are going to be doing a lot of patching of the existing. So we've been working with the committee with boards like this. And then we've been developing some some exterior renderings. So this would be one of the views as any visitor came from the new portion where I mentioned those 50 new parking spaces are. So somebody would park there and then cross over, and you can see on the right-hand side of this would be the volume of the auditorium, which is a little bit higher. And we're anticipating using some more modern materials. I think the color palette is going to fit with the existing brick, but we're going to use larger panel, cementitious panels. And on the auditorium, those are about 18 inches high by 6 feet wide. So it's going to be a much more modern material, but I think it'll blend in quite nicely. And then the public lobby itself, we're really opening up with glass, trying to drive in as much natural daylight as we can. And then you can see the two little boxes are almost a wood feel. Once again, they're a cementitious fiber panel, very, very durable, but it has more of a human scale than a big blank brick wall. So all of the architectural character has been well received. We're continuing work with the site landscape engineers, trying to kind of pull all this together and make it really, really transformational on the outside, not only the inside. I think originally the opportunity was the inside, all those educational spaces. I think this is one part of the building that can also be quite transformational. I think it's going to feel a lot different as the community comes in for all those games and plays in the new addition. So I think at that point, I'm going to turn it over. Well, I don't know if you, I think that's you.
Well, one of the things I wanted to bring up, you've been hearing us talk about owner's rep. Traditionally, on a project, you have a CA, construction construction administrator, who oversees the project. This project here, we don't have the luxury of having Dr. Art Pongratz that we've had throughout the years when we did any other school renovation. So we needed somebody, because I'm a volunteer, the building committee is 100% volunteer, so we needed somebody to actually represent the town, not only at the state, but in fiduciary matters. So we went with what's called an owner's rep. So they not only do they play this role of the CA, but they also play it as the owner. They're representing us in every matter, from contracts to dealing with the state. It's a little more involved. It's a lot more involved, but that's the difference between when we used to talk about a CA to an owner's rep. And Chris?
Great, thanks. Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Right, so as Randy mentioned, as the owner's representative, I'll facilitate this entire project, coordinate all of the contracts, all the consultants that are contracted by the town, not necessarily the sub-consultants, but the prime consultants such as Gilbane as a CM, JCJ as the architect, and so on. As Randy mentioned earlier, one of the things I wanted to touch on was the educational specifications. That's the roadmap that is derived by the Board of Ed and the administration. That really guides the design in terms of their program and what their needs are. We met about a year and a half ago with the Board of Ed and the administration to really review the document that was prepared about a year and a half prior to that, to really look for the efficiencies within their program, within the space, within the existing building, and through that roadmap was then given to JCJ to then begin their design, which is the update that you just saw. So this does meet all of the programmatic needs. It does meet all the space needs. And the Board of Ed and the administration, as JCJ alluded to earlier, is extremely involved. The principal is at just about all of our meetings. The superintendent, the assistant superintendent, they're in attendance as well when their schedule permits. So we do have a lot of participation on this, and it's working out extremely well. As Randy mentioned, also one of the other pieces that I'll manage is all the correspondence and the eligibility for reimbursement with the state school construction grants. They have been a huge role in this thus far. They are involved. They do come to our design meetings, so they sit in. They know exactly where we are in this project, right up to where you all have just seen tonight. We have another meeting in the morning, and they'll be in attendance as well. So it's really important in terms of maximizing the eligibility. The reimbursement rate for this project is almost 71%, 70.71%. So it's extremely important that we maximize and we make sure that the town receives every bit of that 71% that they are entitled to. So that's a huge role that I play, as well as all of the other documentation and any of the other state agencies coordinating that, responding back, so on. And ultimately, it gets to this slide that you're looking at here. May seem slightly boring, but there's a lot of work that has gone into this slide right here to this point. So the SD reconciled estimate, the very first line. So the three phases of the project, or the design, schematic design, design development, construction documents. We just completed schematic design about a month ago. At that point, the construction manager, Gilbane, as well as JCJ, their estimators, their independent estimators, spent about a week and a half really drilling into these drawings, doing quantity takeoffs, and they each came up with their own independent estimate, and then we shared those estimates, and we sat together in a conference room for about 6 hours, and of $72 million, I believe we started about $500,000 apart from each other, from between the two estimators. So we were able to at the end of that meeting present the $72,500,000 construction cost, which leaves a balance of the $11.8 million
Right.
for furniture, soft costs, and our owner's contingency.
One of the things I wanted to just add, because he's really just doesn't really show the amount of effort it took to get to this point. At this point, we're not talking cost per square foot. We're not taking a room and saying it's $450 a square foot. These individuals and the teams and the staffs behind all of them literally are now going through and determining how many bolts, how many steel studs, how much masonry block 8 inches, how many 12-inch block, the carpet. They've had hundreds of pages to come up with the $72 million. It really astounds me, and I'm in the field, and it still astounds me that the detail that's required to get to this point. And like Chris said, they were $500,000 off from $72 million. So that just shows the detail that both these teams put into it to come up with it. There was no guesstimates. There was pages after pages. And you know, just kudos to the team that we have. $500,000 off, and we were able to rectify that. So I just wanted to, there was a lot of effort put into it. I wanted to stress.
There was a lot of effort. So to that, we are still under our total grant, the $84,373,000. We're still well within that. And we do have some contingency in there for any of the unforeseens. One of the things I did want to talk about was the PCB and asbestos containment. As we all know, it's in the building and it's everywhere. We just recently completed a second round of testing, which further tested what was originally tested inside the building. We tested the caulking around all of the exterior windows. We did some other soil tests, right, and some other samplings. Test results have come back in line with what we've anticipated. Not as bad as we had originally thought, but costs are in line and actually represented in the $72 million. So as of now, there are still some samples that we're waiting for results. We should have them back this week or next. But again, our assumptions are that they'll be in line with the allowances that we've carried within that $72 million. So we will be able to remediate and remove all of the PCBs that we've been discovering. The soil, it's really much better than we had originally thought. It's only about 3 or 4 inches deep, which if anyone has remediated PCBs in soil, it can sometimes go down feet. So to be 3 or 4 inches is really good, especially at this point. So all in all, as Randy said, we're rolling right into the design development, the second phase of the design. That should be complete in December-ish, somewhere, with again another round of that week and a half, 2 week long independent estimating, and then we'll come back to a reconciled construction number. So that's where we are to date. Amar, take over.
Thank you. Everybody can hear me, right? So thank you very much. We're excited to be back in the town of Enfield. Very much appreciate the opportunity. And again, we're very excited to be part of this team, fantastic team that's put together. So again, JCJ spoke about the design, Randy spoke about the program and the building committee. I'm going to be talking about the construction and the duration, walking kind of through our approach to this project, and obviously taking into consideration the building itself and some of the occupants. And again, as we approach every project that's occupied, safety is always the number one issue that we need to make sure that the public, as well as the occupants of the building, are completely separated from the construction area. Inherently, construction is a dangerous, trade itself. So we want to make sure that there's complete separation and isolation between the public and the occupied area and the construction area. So what we did was, our approach to this particular project is effectively broken it up into 6 large phases. The first phase being, we're going to be actually, once we receive the construction documents from the design team and go out to bid, and this project is going to be procured via public procurement process, we anticipate going out to bid about early to mid-February timeline, after we receive the go-ahead from the state, which they will do the final review and authorize the project out to bid. The procurement process itself takes about a 6 to 8 week process. Our goal is to start construction next April break. The entire duration for the project is about a 28-month duration from start to end. So our start will be sometime in April next year, and that will take us all the way to the end of August of 2022. So the first phase, which would be our initial move, what you see for the blue blocks that you see on the screen, basically represents the swing space. This particular project, because we're renovating when the building is occupied, obviously right now the building is fully occupied, so we need to think through with the design team, obviously the building committee, as well as the building official and the fire marshal, how we're going to actually go around and making sure that there's a safe swing space that's being created within the existing building to be able to renovate this building as we march forward along the entire project, the entire 28 months. So initially, we're going to be converting the existing cafeteria seating area, that is, into classroom spaces, and I'll show you that in the next slide. The other space we'll be looking at to convert is the actual existing media center, creating some classroom space there. We were looking at about a 15 classroom swing space, and that 15 classrooms that would allow us to take over one of the wings, whether it's the red wing, the white wing, or the blue wing, and be able to renovate that while the occupants are actually using the existing cafeteria as well as the existing media center as a swing space. The other area we're looking at, obviously, with the cafeteria not being there, the seating area, that is not the kitchen, where we're going to be utilizing the existing auditorium as the area where the students will be having their lunches while we actually occupy the existing cafeteria. So that slide, so this particular area that shows the actual existing kitchen, which is going to remain functional throughout the duration, and now we're looking in the seating area to construct temporary classrooms. Now, we have reviewed this with this particular slide with the fire marshal and the building official, and we are actually going to be developing additional details to sit down with them and now show the hard separation. As we construct this, we want to make sure there's hard barriers between, again, the occupied areas and the construction areas. We're going to utilize temporary fencing, signage. Again, we're going to be doing abatement, so it's important that hard isolation, zero transmission of any noise or dust between the occupied area and the construction area. The other space, as I indicated earlier, that's going to be creating some temporary swing space classrooms is the existing media center, and that shows the configuration that's been laid out by the design team, is how we're going to accomplish those 6 classrooms. That's the second swing space. So that work is going to start in April, and our goal is to complete it by August, so we have about a 4-month duration to be able to construct those temporary classrooms. I'll go back to that first slide. So that's taking care of those blue spaces. As next June comes online, once the school goes into summer recess, we are going to actually start the construction of the new auditorium addition. That's the red block that you see at the top of the page. And we're looking, obviously, come July of next year, looking to close the art area that's actually, the existing Taggart area, that's this space right here, because at some point in time, as we advance the construction of the addition, with that particular space being incorporated as part of the auditorium, we saw an opportunity there to be able to take that and make sure the construction blend in seamlessly. The approximate duration of constructing this auditorium addition and renovating the existing Taggart into an art is about a 12-month duration. So that's an area that we're looking to construct. The other space that we're going to be tackling, in order to accomplish this entire within the 28 months, we have a lot of spaces to attack, and we want to make sure that we have the right swing space and the time allotted to construct and renovate this particular building. We're also looking to infill the existing demo and infill the actual pool space area, that is, and that's in order to facilitate the new cafeteria kitchen. So those two large areas are going to be going up simultaneously, or being renovated, and the addition obviously going up simultaneously. And that's about a 1-year duration. So by the summer of 2021, in August, we'll be completed with the auditorium, and we'll be completed with the new cafeteria kitchen area. In addition to that, again, once we, as I indicated earlier, that we've completed the actual swing space construction, we're going to be taking over the blue wing. So again, the occupants of the blue wing, they're going to be swinging into the temporary swing space areas, and we're going to be attacking that particular. That's the one in orange. So as we march forward to phase 2, this particular slide kind of shows the advancement of the construction. Again, as the swing spaces are done, the work is ongoing in the blue wing, in the new kitchen cafeteria area, and the new auditorium area. As we look at phase 3, that shows the completion of the actual auditorium. This is kind of the February 21 into August of 21 that shows this particular area is being completed. And now the existing gym is being renovated, and that starts in April of 21, and that goes out for about 6-month duration, that particular area. Now, we do have this coming summer, the summer of 21 and the summer of 22, so we want to take advantage of the summer renovation. Those particular areas, those particular timelines is when the occupants are not in the building. That's where we're going to be attacking most of the public areas like the center hub or the circular area that's here, because obviously those cannot be renovated when the school is in session. Phase 4 kind of shows us how we're kind of marching around the building as we renovate the areas that are kind of purple and dots. Those are being completed. The orange areas are active areas for construction. So again, the red wing occupants, again, swing back into the temporary classrooms, and we take over the next wing.
So the children will only move one time. They're going to be moving from out of their classrooms to the temporary, and then when that wing is done, they move back. So the kids won't be moving back and forth. They'll only be moving one time.
That's correct. So again, as you see, the areas are starting to change color in terms of completion. The timeline is moving. Now we're approaching about the completion of the project or the end of the project, and that's when the actual renovation of the new admin space is going to be renovated and converted, which is the existing cafeteria kitchen area. That's actually going to be starting around February 22, and that will take us to August. It's about a 6-month duration of renovations of that particular space. Obviously, during the summer of 22, which is this particular slide that you see there, this is where we're going to be working on the world language area and also finalizing the admin space. Obviously, we'll be taking out those existing portables that exist currently next to the Red Wing as well. During those the summers that I mentioned earlier, we're also going to be taking over some of the site. We're going to do a lot of site work, and some of it may spill into the fall, but we want to make sure that that school operation is not impacted. So in addition to what you see as far as building renovations, we're actually going to be doing a lot of the balance of the site work, whether it's the driveway, the parking lots, the drainage, the landscaping, as well as the field orientation. That's all going to be accomplished during those summers, as well as some of it may be able to do during the fall as well. But that obviously will not impede an impact on the operation of the existing building. One area I just want to hit on is that obviously our trade parking, laydown areas, our construction trailers, as well as our subcontractor trailers are all going to be primarily located in this location in the area next door to the school. And we are going to be utilizing some stockpiling area. Again, we will not impact the operation. Very similar to what we did at the high school. It's, it's every square inch of the site is being disrupted and being improved and renovated. And so we want to make sure that we don't impact, obviously, the operation of the school. Last but not least, this is a high-level schedule that kind of shows where we started as far as the pre-construction, which is the design phase that we're in, and takes us all the way into construction, which is the August 20 of 22. I think the team spoke enough about the estimates. We do have 2 more estimates that we have to develop, which is the design development that's going to take place in the month of November, and we have also construction documents estimate that we're going to be developing also in the month of December into January.
So
what I have.
This is what we've been doing for almost a year now. We've been busy. We're, and I love saying this, ahead of schedule. And as you can see right now, we're on budget, and we plan on staying on budget. So with that being said, I know time is crucial, so I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I can sense from what you're saying you have a love for that building, probably as much as I do, because when I first started teaching in Enfield in the early 1970s, it wasn't that tired. Actually, at that point, it was not a tired old building as it is now. So I'm looking forward to seeing this tired new building becoming a lively new building, and I appreciate all the information you've given us. Of course, being a former teacher myself, we're concerned with the educational process, and I'm sure you're going to mitigate against as much educational disruption as as possible. Just one question though. First of all, let me say this: I'm also happy that you're talking to the teachers. These are the people who have to make this thing work, and I'm very happy that you're communicating with them. As far as the construction is concerned, my knowledge of construction is rather limited, and I know you spoke about PCBs. With a building that old, are there any other potential hazardous substances in that building that could present a danger to the
We are
people in that
testing
building?
for all of that: asbestos, PCB, any other contamination substance from the structure itself to, like we said, the soil conditions. We've touched upon just about everything that there possibly could be. I don't know if you wanted to add, but we're
So primarily, I mean, this building, I think JCJ indicated, we're completely gut renovating this entire building. So effectively, in 90% of it, we're actually going all the way out to the structure. So if there's any contaminants or any type of material or suspect contaminants, that's being taken out. The soil itself, there is some PCBs in the soils. Again, we implemented the same process at the high school. That's going to be also eliminated and removed and be replaced with obviously clean soil. In the event we run into any potential other contaminants, will be addressed accordingly. Will be tested, sampled, isolated, stockpiled. I mean, those will be dealt with. At this point in time, based on the survey and all the studies that the team did, the only issues we're dealing with is PCBs and asbestos-containing materials.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Great job. Aren't you glad not to see me as the liaison for a change?
no.
Joe, doing a good job.
we have great liaisons. So
Give everybody, everybody's worried about the boiler. So if we could get a little bit of an update on how, the boiler on a cart or boiler in a trailer is working out.
explain. They're all being replaced, but I'll have them explain the procedures.
So basically, the project, and maybe go right to this area, maybe this might, right there. So the project itself is receiving new boilers, and the mechanical room is being completely renovated into with new systems, new HVAC, new plumbing systems. Obviously, there's certain, as we renovated the building itself, some of the existing space is going to be still served by the existing systems. And as we phase out the old and phase in the new, the boilers that are being used on what you call on a trailer mounted type, those are going to be utilized during the construction. At some point in time, once we take over the wing, that's going to be on the new boiler system. So our approach is to build the new wing and also build the new boiler
In that
room
area.
itself.
Great. That's, it's
Then roll in. We have to utilize the existing boiler system or the trailer boiler, if you will, until we are at some point in time when that season is over, before the construction wraps up, and then the entire building will be on the new system. So
Great.
yes, it will be utilized for a certain duration.
good. We don't want any surprises. And the whole building will be air conditioned when it's done, correct?
Correct.
Always
100%.
Yes.
good point. And I know the state was really impressed with the high ceilings and the robotics and putting that in the hub. And they really were very helpful. I mean, when our first referendum did not fare so well, they were really, I thought it was a great experience, to work together with everybody to get a referendum that the people passed and the state was happy with. So we're always worried about money and stuff like that. We look like we're pretty much, a little bit under budget. We're getting there. But there's a contingency that's there. And right now, we have everything that we need. So this contingency would only be used if something, happened.
Unforeseen.
Right. Where, at the high school, we were able to put some stuff in that
Yep.
we hadn't,
And also, and I don't mean to cut you off,
Nope.
at the high school, we didn't have FF&E and IT included
That's
in
what I
it.
wanted you
That
to
was
tell me.
money that we were pulling from contingency. That is in that dollar line. The
Right.
contingency is 100% contingency. Our FF&E, furniture, and equipment, and IT is in that dollar
Right.
that we talked about. So any contingency money will be either added to the project to better things or for unforeseens, such as, you know, we hit a oil tank at the high school that was supposed to have been gone, that was literally the size of a bus. But we don't foresee that, but we have contingency that's going to be used 100% for contingency, not for project anticipation.
Great, thank you, Randy, I appreciate that. Now, are you aware of the Fuss O'Neill PCB study
Yep,
that they're
we've
doing?
been working closely with them.
Great, okay, because that could, you know, it was really great to work with DEEP and everything like that.
Yeah, we worked with them. We took their initial study, had them come back and did a more in-depth study, and that's how we came up to the conclusion of what has to be done, and we put a dollar amount to it. As Chris mentioned, there were some areas that came back extremely better than we anticipated. Take it the PCBs for the soil. We initially thought we were going 5 feet by 2 feet from the building. We're only going to go 2 feet by 4 inches. All the other areas came back negative. They weren't hot. Some of the windows, the classroom windows that are a certain size, there's 290 of them. Only the sill came back hot, not the sides. So there are some areas that came back better than we anticipated. And then there was a couple areas that the caulking that we didn't think became. But overall, we came out better than we initially started. So, but we've been working closely with Fuss and O'Neill.
And also, you know, people out there, you know, Art Pomerantz used to, you know, be highly involved in this, but,
We
you
miss
know,
him.
everything evolves and everything changes. But now when we have, you know, owner reps come in, those are reimbursed by the state. That's part of our reimbursement. Whereas if we had staff on board doing this, they would not be reimbursing our staff for any services there. So these are things that, you know, change and we evolve. So we always like to keep everything clear and everybody understands what's going on. But great job. It's been a pleasure.
Councilor Strauss?
I just want to say that just looking at the amount of detail that has gone into this to this point, I know you're doing your homework on it, but please indulge me in this because I looked at these projects through the prism of my former life. And in terms of the aftermath of Sandy Hook, I believe what I found out was that the state, I think it's the Department of Education, has changed building specifications for new construction. Could you address those, please?
Yep, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's one of the checkpoints that we have to go to the state and we walk through the building, the plans. There's a whole checklist, security protocol that the state has implemented in the last few years. So we actually have consultants on our team that are integral to it. And it's been a big part of the conversation right from the beginning.
Okay. Has our public safety, our police department been involved in these discussions?
Yeah, we've had a meeting with them already, and we're anticipating at least a couple more through the process.
Okay. Because one of the things, as you probably know, our town has we take our safety of our children very seriously. And when we were building Enfield High, you know, one of the concerns always was, and I'm not asking you to get into any detail of it, but it's the type of materials we used on doors, on windows, and even things that may not seem important, but in times of emergency, communication ability with repeaters in the building and all those things. As long as you're all nodding your head, so I assume you're doing.
Those conversations are underway.
Great.
And will be ongoing right through the entire process.
Great.
And things change. I mean, 6 months from now, there may be a slightly different protocol.
Right.
But I think as designers, it's important for us to understand how the first responders come in, how they want to deal with different problems. So
Right.
we've talked through a lot of different scenarios.
And I'm sure you've talked to the fire service as well, not just the police. Great.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank
One
you.
of the things that, and it's not that we don't want to be transparent when we talk about security, but we don't want to give away what we're doing, as you can understand. So one of the luxuries that we have and the town has right now is the report that was written for Sandy Hook. JCJ was part of the team that came up with it. So this isn't new to them. They were part of the evolution of this report. But as you know, like I said, we met with everybody that we possibly can, but it's nothing that we disclose on the drawings, and nothing we disclose in a public format. So, but absolutely, sir, absolutely.
Councilor Sakala?
Just a couple of quick things. First of all, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to everybody in the committee. I wasn't involved in the entire high school building committee, but I know it's a ton of work. So I just have a couple of questions. One, cafeteria. Are you increasing the size so there are going to be more students that can go in there? Because I'm going to say one of my gripes, and my kids are both at JFK. My youngest will be living through this renovation. So are you making the cafeteria larger so they don't have to eat at 10:30 in the morning?
Yes, yeah, the cafeteria will be bigger. We're anticipating 3 waves of lunch right now. And we've actually talked, 2 weeks ago, we actually did some fairly major redesign as we talked through with the food service folks as to how students came in. Typically, they're carrying books and things like that. They're not necessarily carrying book bags around. So one of the scenarios was that the students enter in a single line. They come in to the servery, pick up their lunch, and then go into the cafeteria. Doesn't work for the food service folks because you got kids carrying books and all kinds of stuff and then trying to carry a tray. So we actually redesigned the kitchen and the servery 2 weeks ago, and we're kind of scrambling right now. But those are the scenarios that we're talking through. Can we fit enough kids in the cafeteria? How do they actually come into the cafeteria, put their books down at a table, and then go to the servery? Talking about, we had an in-depth conversation as to the number of meals, the percentage of kids that are actually taking hot lunch, percentage of kids that actually bring their own lunch, and walking through each and every one of those scenarios and trying to understand it, just kind of experiencing, the student's experience for
Well, then I'm
lunch.
glad that you're talking to them specifically about that because I know another issue
Let
is
me
that.
reassure you one thing on that, if
Then
I
I'll stop
could,
talking
because
then.
it's not the square feet that determines if it's convenient. It's the actual server itself. For the kids to come in, it takes right now about 7 to 11 minutes for a
Right,
child
so
to
that's
come
what I was going to
through.
say, Randy. One of the issues is, again,
Exactly.
it's my kids coming home and saying, I had 3 minutes to eat my lunch today because I
Exactly.
had hot lunch and I stood in line and then I abandoned it. Didn't,
Right.
And thank goodness I had a granola bar in my backpack. So that's the kind of feedback that I'm glad that you're getting and taking in.
Yep.
And
those are
okay.
exactly the
Perfect.
conversations that we're
Good.
having with the food service folks. There's going to be 4 separate serving lines, and it's much more stretched out than they are currently, and more of them as well.
Good. My next question is the fields. Amara, I think you talked about, and you guys are going to do the site work, the outside work, in essence, during the summertime. Are those fields going to be usable for fall sports and spring sports? Do you anticipate those fields being usable for
They
the
will
fall?
not be.
Yeah.
They will
That's-
not be. During the construction of it, there's a time period during the construction, once we have ownership of it, that they will not be allowed. And we've already talked with the town, and the town said that they're already rescheduling where they're gonna be located. Because not only is there a construction going on where you're parking, you've gotta go through the construction zone to get to the field, and we're not putting any kids in harm's way for a baseball game. So the towns are well aware of it. The town's going to reschedule where certain activities are going to take place, but no, it will not be available.
So for those 28 months, we're not going to be able
Yes.
to use those fields? That's what you're saying?
Not the entire 28, because we're not touching the fields to a certain point. That's all being coordinated with the town. When we're doing construction on areas that aren't implemented or anything with the fields can still be used. It's when we start going to that other area where we're going to be cross-contaminating the traffic, and then the fields will be offline.
Okay. And I guess the last one's just a comment. I know that a lot of people probably are terrified of having their kids go to school when this construction's happening. I mean, again, like I said, it's my experience only. My kid's going to be there during this. I know it's not going to be ideal, but I have all the faith that it's going to go smoothly-ish and that everybody will be happy in the end. So, thank you.
One of the things that we currently are doing, and we did at the high school, is we have the construction manager has daily contact, and we do a 2-week look ahead, so everybody knows if there's going to be tests in a certain area, we move the anything that's going to be in that area. Gilbane has a daily contact with the principal. If there's any issues, instantly they communicate with each other.
Yeah, our staff will be on site. It's very similar to the high school. We're going to have staff about 5 to 6 Gilbane individuals, supervisors on site. So typically the lead superintendent will be communicating with the principal and their administrators on a daily basis if there's any special deliveries, if there's any special activities that may generate noise, and any other activities that could potentially may conflict, such as deliveries. So we always try to schedule our deliveries, obviously not to interfere with any bus drop-off or parent pickup and drop-off. Again, those are the areas that as we develop the site, and we're going to have a separate site phasing and logistics plan that's going to be reviewed with the fire marshals. Again, we're only a schematic design, which is about a 30% design. As we continue to advance this design forward, those phasing plans, interior, the ones I showed you, as well as we're going to have exterior phasing plans, those are going to continue to evolve. And those are all going to be reviewed and obviously approved by the building official and the fire marshal as well, to make sure that their code compliance. We're starting to look at egress as we actually start developing the interior phasing of the building. Very similar to what we did at the high school.
Councilor Casati?
First of all, being a liaison to this committee, I want to commend you, and I think it's absolutely important that you come in front of us and to the public that's listening tonight to give us these periodic updates. I think that is key. All of the questions that everybody had answered, you're spot on with the responses to them. So on any question, you're prepared. All the plans that that we've been discussing at all of these meetings, and Joe being the other town council liaison, just keep up the great work and everything that you're doing. In response to Gina's response that when the fields aren't in use, kids will be bused to an area that they'll be able to participate, whether it's practice or play. All this stuff is already worked out. The transitioning of the classrooms into the old cafeteria and into the library area for, at first when when you started proposing and how this was going to get done, well, it's making sense. But for hearing it for the first time, it doesn't make sense. But when you hear it and see it 2 or 3 times, it makes sense, and it's all coming together, and we're ahead of schedule, and funding in terms of money spent at this point, right on. So keep up the great work, and I know that you'll be in front of us periodically as the project goes on to keep everybody informed. And, all the questions that were posed today, very easy answers to give back to them. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the things, just to be sure, we do periodic. This is our first one because we didn't have solid stuff to show you. We're doing a Board of Ed tomorrow, and we also will be doing, in a couple of months, a public one. We're going to get the public informed. We're going to see if we can do it at the high school and allow the public to come in. Transparency, a big thing. I want everybody to know this is their house. This is only one middle school. This is where every one of the kids go. This is where half our building committee children go. So we want everybody to know what we're doing, where their money's being spent, and being spent wisely.
Thank you. Councilor Davis?
Thank you all in the committee for a great job. Maybe if, I don't know if I've said, I can't remember, but I know a few people, and I've also got a text ask the question. What was the outcome or the reason that we did not use Fermi for a year so we can get the JFK built quicker without having any students there or anybody in any danger or anything? As you guys were saying, you got to shift, you got to put barriers for the dust and all that. So I don't even have the answer to get that answer. So I'm hoping somebody else could.
Fermi can't ever be used as an educational facility, so we couldn't use it as a temporary building. When we took one of the main reasons why the high school got used is because they were pretty much at the end of their grandfather to have that building back up to ADA requirements and asbestos and contaminations. They literally have 3 months left on that grandfather clause before that school will lose accreditation. It can never be used as an education facility.
Okay.
It wasn't an option.
Okay. Thanks. I didn't have the answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to the committee. Just one quick question. So the basketball courts, will there be lights once the new courts are moved? And I guess while we're asking about that, what about the fields? And sprinklers, while I'm at it. Will it be
The
sprinklers?
basketball courts will be lit, the fields will not be lit,
Got
and
it.
the fields will not be sprinkled.
Will not be sprinkled, okay, good. Just wanted to ask while we're here. 'Cause
Yes,
there's-
sir.
I think there's current lights, and that's one of the few basketball courts outside that still gets used a lot in town. Yeah, so it's gonna be good to be able to see, not having the cracks in the middle of the court that there is there now. Well, again, thank you very much. Thank you to the committee. It's been a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Let's motion to adjourn special meeting.
do I have a motion to adjourn a special meeting?
Motion to
By
adjourn.
Councilor Muller, second by Deputy Mayor Suzak. All those in favor of adjourning the special meeting? We're moving on now. Thank you, gentlemen. Apologize, folks. It is 7:23. Moving on to the regular meeting of Monday, October 7th, 2019. Prayer by Councilor Bosco.
High tech.
Dear Lord, with our Jewish community observing Yom Kippur, this week we may follow this day in reflection of repentance and our own reflection about how we can live our life in honor and peace. We pray tonight for our community and the needs that exist. We pray for our elderly as they have needs our support. We pray for our youth as they need us to provide them a bright future. We pray for our families as they seek to provide for the needs in their care. And we pray for our town leaders who impact the lives of all. We ask this in our Lord's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item 3, roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco.
Here.
Counselor Sakala.
Here.
Counselor Crisati.
Here.
Counselor Davis.
Here.
Counselor Denny. Counselor Keiner. Mayor Ludwig.
Here.
Counselor Muller.
Here.
Counselor Sferrazza.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Here.
Counselor Ungary. There's 9 members present, 2 are absent.
Moving on to item 4 of the agenda, the fire evacuation announcement. In case of a fire, please orderly exit the town council chambers to the exit of the building, either to the left or to the right, or to the doors to our left, to the audience's right. Go out the first door, down the stairs, and out the doors, the sliding doors into the parking lot. Item 5, minutes of the preceding meeting. Do I have a motion to approve special meeting September 16th, 2019? By Councilor Muller, by Deputy Mayor Suzak. Is there any additions, deletions, corrections to the minutes? Hearing none by show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor, 2 abstentions? Or 6 in favor? Moving on to the, do I have approval for the regular meeting of September 16, 2019? By Councilor Muller. By Councilor Crisati. Is there any additions, deletions? Deputy Mayor Suzak?
Page 3, it should say September 26th. I may have misspoke, but it was September 26th. Thank you.
So, I can amend that, or we just wait till next meeting?
If you want to.
So we have a
table-
motion to amend,
Approve as amended.
approve as amended. Is there a second to the amendment? Councilor Sferrazza. Any questions on the amendment? This is on the amendment alone. A show of hands, all those in favor of the amendment? Opposed, abstentions? We have 7 in favor, 1 abstention. Now, on the regular meeting with the, as amended, do we have any other further additions, deletions, or corrections? As amended, all those in favor by show of hands? Opposed, abstentions? 7 in favor, 1 abstention. Moving on to item 6, special guest. We welcome, this is the Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We welcome Miss Annalisa Deal. Welcome. How you doing? Come on up. How you doing? Welcome. Did you know you were? No. Oh, we have you as a special guest tonight. Well, surprise. But if you welcome name and then just maybe quick, on this being Awareness Month. Is it bright?
Okay.
Yeah.
So my name is Annalisa Deal. I'm the community youth educator for the Network Against Domestic Abuse in Enfield. And October is the National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so we wanted to come to propose our Wear Purple Day on Thursday, October 24th. We wanted to encourage people to do that to help raise awareness, and for the proclamation to recognize the Purple Day in October Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Did you already reach out or? Okay. Any questions for Annalisa? Anything else? Sorry, great job. On the fly, great job.
Thank you.
Any questions? We'll have to talk to Deb about to make sure the proclamation. Quick, short and sweet.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to Reese Across America, Ms. Pamela Townsend and Lori Gates, please come up. Now, you guys are prepared, right?
We got like 10
All right,
pages.
you got it.
You only get 5 minutes.
Welcome, ladies.
Okay, hi, my name's Pam Townsend. This is Lori Gates, and we are here to talk to you about Wreaths Across America program for this year. Wreaths Across America's mission is remember our fallen, honor those who serve, and teach the value of freedom. And this year's theme is Everyone Plays a Part. How does Enfield support the mission? We bring Wreaths Across America to Enfield. How do we support the theme? We ask the public to attend our ceremony and sponsor wreaths. On December 14th, Enfield will have its 11th Wreaths Across America ceremony at St. Patrick's Cemetery at 12 p.m. This ceremony is not just local or within the state of Connecticut, it is global. There are over 1,600 ceremonies taking place at the same time at memorial sites all across America, at sea and abroad. And annually, Wreaths Across America conducts a ceremony honoring veterans of nations allies in ceremonies on international border crossing bridges between the U.S. and Canada. I learned that one this year when I was reading through some stuff. Last year, there were nearly 1.8 million veterans wreaths placed in total across the country. Enfield was represented in that number. However, we do have work to do. There are approximately 1,500 veterans laid to rest at St. Pat's. It is our goal to remember and honor every veteran laid to rest there and other local cemeteries if possible. We can reach this goal with the help of you and the public and area businesses. Please help us spread the word so every veteran is remembered and honored on December 14th. Let us never forget. So now, Lori is supposed to read. I'll try. She's got laryngitis, so she's going to make an attempt. If not, I'll take over.
I'll keep note on here. If you can't hear me, please say something and then she'll read it. Jolie. Okay. So I wanted to explain the 3 integral parts of Wreaths Across America. And I say 3, but typically everybody gets 2. The wreath ceremony on that congressionally designated date and the laying of the wreaths immediately following that ceremony. As Pam stated, Enfield does the ceremony and the laying of the wreaths annually for 11 years now. We sit here today in council chambers where elected officials and specifically chosen employees and leaders decide policies on the daily. I think it's pretty easy to point out to everyone that decisions are made after much thought, discussion, sometimes arguments, passionate yeses and nos, and ultimately by compromise. And that's just for our town and our school systems. Imagine the U.S. Congress coming together to designate one day every year for Wreaths Across America with the specific ceremony start time of 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, a decision that affects not just the ceremonies here on U.S. soil, but also in foreign lands with U.S. cemeteries. This simple decision impacts every single person involved in the process, from the balsam tree trimmers to the truckers, to the U.S. Postal Service, all the way down to the first person to step up to that microphone on that designated Saturday. What may seem to be a simple decision affects thousands of lives behind the scenes so that their ceremonies we attend and take part in on that designated day are meaningful, welcoming to all and unifying in the communities, heartfelt, honorable, and reverent. No easy task, and it shouldn't be easy because the duties of those we honor were certainly not easy. They're worthy of so much more than just that 1-hour cemetery ceremony. That's the first part. Remember I said there were 2. The second part comes in the form of the wreath laying at the conclusion of the annual ceremony. We always encourage volunteers to take a moment and say the name of the person they're honoring with a wreath as they place it on their grave. That's the emotional connection the Wreaths Across America program strives for with the motto of remember, honor, and teach. But how we get those wreaths is not as easy as it would seem. Wreaths are sponsored by individuals at any point in the calendar year with a $15 tax-deductible donation in WAA. Wreaths counts are accumulated and wreaths are delivered by the U.S. Postal Service, UPS, and many other delivery services in time for the annual ceremony, most often the day before. If you send your $15 to WAA in Maine, like on February 4th, for example, the wreath you're sponsoring for an at-rest veteran will be handled for you in December, and other than that monetary transaction, your part's complete. However, to make sure your wreath is sent to Enfield, you need a site code. Enfield's is CTSPCE, which we can write down also for you, for St. Pat's Cemetery. Of course, if you wish to attend and place wreaths on your own, you are certainly welcome to do so. These 2 parts of the WAA program are pretty much a given. As long as we have someone to be a location coordinator, Enfield has its own cemetery ceremony, and as long as we can continue to have wreaths sponsored, we can honor our veterans. But we rely on the general public to help us with this goal for our wreath counts. You all, each and every one of you, make that happen. And if you don't know how to do it, please contact Pam or myself and we'll walk you through the process and help you. I mentioned that there's a third part of the program. It's definitely not a given. It isn't promised, and we're lucky in the position that we are geographically that it can even be possible. This part's the visitation of the Wreaths Across America convoy as they head down from Maine to Arlington National Cemetery with trucks loaded with sponsored wreaths, separated usually by section numbers, bound for hallowed grounds. These folks make stops along their route when possible to schools, VA hospitals, military installations, and such to honor those lost and afford us the opportunity to teach that third tenet of their program. By a stroke of sheer luck in 2011, Enfield was made one of their stops. And because of the enthusiastic patriotism of our little town and the creative expertise of our public school teachers and staff, we've made an impression. They returned the following year, and we've continued to be a favorite for a total of 5 years. Tonight, I'm here to tell you that we have once again been chosen as a stop, giving Enfield its 6th opportunity to show our patriotism and how we fully embrace that message of remember, honor, and teach. Huge props to everyone involved in this convoy stop, from the teachers to the students, our first responders to our citizens. There is a reason they stop in Enfield, and it's because of the enthusiasm and the love that comes from our town. All 3 of these parts need the other to be successful, and this is one of those events that highlights how well Enfield comes together when it counts. We will be updating you on the ceremony and the convoy as it gets closer. I'm proud of our past years. Now it's time to see what 2019 can bring. And again, we ask that you help us spread the word and sponsor wreaths for the cemetery.
I've provided Suzanne the sponsorship form, and she'll get it to you in a little bit. I've also posted it on several of the social media outlets, and if you'd like, you can request an additional form by sending me an email to enfieldwaa@yahoo.com or call me at 860-463-2795. The important part is if you're going to do a mail-in wreath order, I need to receive the form by November 23rd, which is like Thanksgiving weekend, to make sure the wreaths are shipped directly to Enfield in time for our ceremony. Basically, the form explains everything on what you can do, what you need to do to order. We appreciate the opportunity tonight to speak. Does anybody have any questions?
Council Straza.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say I had the privilege in my former role with the town to be invited every year. And I also had the honor as a family member to be invited back each year in honor of my brother. And I got to tell you, when you sit in that auditorium and you look at all those young children and you think of the generations of American veterans, soldiers, men and women that lay down their lives at a young age for generations of Americans they never met, and then to see those future generations pay honor to the people that got them there, and maybe they don't get it totally, but it's an absolutely wonderful ceremony. I wish it could be televised, and without a doubt, it's the most important program, I think, that goes on at the school. And I know that the two of you have a lot to do, especially Lori, when you got it going originally, and I thank you, and anything we could do to support it, I would support it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Davis.
Thank you for all that you do. I just want, can you guys touch a little bit on, because they're getting the word out, like the PTOs can do it and they get $5 back for each wreath. Can you guys just touch upon that a little bit? Because I think that opens the avenue a little bit further if we get the schools involved, the PTOs.
Okay, basically what they can do is go online to the wreathsacrossamerica.org website and establish their fundraising account. Most of they have the First Readers group had theirs last year. Enfield HUA had it. There's a couple of organizations that have it, and when I checked, it looked like the First Readers group was already setting up their account. So it's fairly easy to go in and set it up through the wreathsacrossamerica.org site. You just, in order to make sure it comes to St. Pat's, you just have to have the site code that you'll see it's on the form. So.
And that the fundraiser groups that register, they don't have to be nonprofits. They have to be community groups. They're given a code. And so let's say that a PTO wants to register, we'll say Eli Whitney for just naming a school. Eli Whitney gets a code, and then they send those forms home for wreath orders, and they automatically fill out our cemetery code, so we know it's coming to Enfield, and they fill in their code. What happens is for every $15 wreath that is sponsored, it doesn't change the cost. It's still $15 a wreath. They give $5 back to that registered organization by that code. So it's a great fundraiser. It's win-win. I mean, you're getting people to talk about veterans and honoring them. The veteran who's laid to rest gets a wreath, tax deductible for your $15, and $5 goes back to your community group with little work. I mean, you're making photocopies and filling in one form, you know. So we would encourage people, if this is something they're interested in, please do it, because it just brings more awareness out there, and it's the potential for more wreaths and more honors to be done, and more children to be reached as the part of the discussion.
Anyone else? Always say congratulations. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. Just be ready on December 11th. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Moving on to item 7, public communications. At this time, the public is allowed to speak. First time up is 5 minutes. We please ask that you refrain from personalities. Would anyone like to speak before the council at this time? Anyone else like to speak for the council? Lucian? Lucian, you're first. Go ahead. Welcome, sir.
Lucian Lefebvre, 54 Kimberly Drive, also American Legion Post 154 commander and member of the Town Veterans Council. I'm here to give the people of the town a save the date, November 10th, Sunday at 1 o'clock. Our parade, our Veterans Day parade, steps off from the Enfield Street School, comes north on Enfield Street to the town green. And I'm happy to say we have a wonderful guest speaker this year. We have the Commissioner of the Connecticut VA, Tomasati, coming up to be our guest speaker. And another thing that we've gotten this year, we're getting the Make-A-Wish monster truck to be in our parade. So a couple of, a new thing. We've got a great speaker.
Driving it?
I'm not driving it. I'd love to, but no. And like I tell you all the time, the parade is the fringe benefit of the whole thing. The most important thing is what goes on in the green behind us right here. The ceremony at the green is the most important part of this whole day. And like I said, we've got a wonderful guest speaker. I encourage people to come to the green and participate in the ceremony. That is the whole gist of what the day is about. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Sir. Name and address.
Andre Druin, 11 Alden Avenue, Enfield. I'd like to know why the town is charging me $75 a day for blight when I'm fighting with my insurance company on trying to get the money to rebuild the property. When I know there are at least the property right behind me that burnt down in '09, they never had any issues with blight. And there's a property on Church Street that burnt down 4 years before mine, and they're not having any problems. I seem to be the only one to see incurring this $75 a day. I'd like to know why the town of Enfield is discriminating against me. Is it because they want to get the $25,000 lien on my property?
It's not a back and forth, sir. We will have to follow up with the answer.
Okay, well, those are my questions.
Okay? Anyone else like to speak for the council at this time? Anyone else like to speak for the council? Ray?
Good evening. Raymond Peabody, 370 Washington Road, our fair town. A few things I'd like to mention tonight. The first is I want to give a shout out to Town Manager Chris. I appreciate the communications that are happening. When I do go on social media, there's always something there from the town, what's going on, from the other departments, the school system, police department, public works, and I know you have a lot to do with that, you and Chris Dredzik, and I appreciate it very much. I noticed an uptick in the communications, and also whenever I reach out to a town councilor, I get very quick responses. Must be my personality, I don't know. Anyway, the other thing is, I really appreciate the leadership that's been given over the past 10 years regarding our finances and budget. That work has led to a favorable rating in our bond rating, which leaves us money in the budget to be placed or saved or whatever to take care of other social services. That's what sound fiscal management's all about, and I appreciate that as a taxpayer. And also somebody in corporate America who's always dealing with budgets and things of that nature. Third thing I want to talk about is I want to thank you guys again for putting forth the Eagle Academy. That actually idea was started in an idealization type of event in 2014. School system wanted to sit there and have a facility that we could bring kids who cannot be allowed in the general classroom, who are disruptive, to have a place to be educated. Not many people realized in 14 and 15, it cost the town of Enfield between $80,000 and $120,000 per student to go to either Woodlawn in East Hartford or Gengras in West Hartford. That money is now kept in the budget here in town, taking care of our students. And potentially we'll have other towns want to tap into the services that we're providing these children. During that whole discussion, there was comments about Head Start having to move. Well, in my world, when you can take your resources, centralize them to help a constituency, you do that. It's cost effective, but more importantly than money, it's more effective for the child. Because now you have, from the start of a child comes into our school system, through early childhood development, all the way through their academic years, it can be traced. That progress can be traced, it can be analyzed, it can be looked at, and we can get the help that students may or may not need, or may need rather. So I think that's one of the best things I've seen in town for a long, long time. Next thing is, there's a comment I saw that bothered me a little bit. I depend on the school systems in my world, in my corporate world. I depend on them to give a foundation so kids can either go to a trade school, they can go to college, and they can learn what they need to learn. I work in business technology. A few years back, we started off with having coding, what they call coding or computer programming, as part of the academic curriculum. The curriculum always has to adjust to the society's needs, and that's what's happening. We recently were able to give iPads to all the students, so that leads to an adjustment to the computer lab, and that's a favorable thing because it shows that we're flexible, we're doing it right, and we're doing it effectively. It being providing the right curriculum for our students. And the right curriculum is going to change every 5 to 8 years because the world's needs changes. We need laborers. We need people who can construction, carpentry, mechanics, plumbers, electricians. But we also need people who can do programming. We need people who can do other things within the sciences, which state of Connecticut and Enfield came up with a STEM program. We called it STEAM because you need art in there as well. And I thought that that was a really solid way to go. So anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and hope other people can see the positive things that have been happening over the past few years. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Anyone else like to speak for the council? For the second time? Hearing none, I declare public communications closed. We move on to item 8, council communications. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and move items E, F, G, and H to miscellaneous and proceed to vote.
Motion made to suspend the rules and move items E, F, G, H from items for discussion to miscellaneous by Councilor Muller. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing by show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed, abstention, 9 in favor, 0 against. Still have the floor.
Still have the floor? Okay. I guess I'm going to ask one more time for the corridor study for 190 to go all the way up to Skidco, because I was out in that area and it seems like people will do anything to avoid those 2 lights. And I don't blame them, because I've sat for 6 of them sometimes just to get down to Broadbrook Road. Also, everybody bring your trash cans in. You know, the road's not a place to store them, so let's kind of spruce the place up a little bit. And also, on Saturday night, I attended the ARFC fundraiser, the Farm to Table. There's a lot of us there. It was a great event. I hope we see it come again. I mean, it's something different. It really showcased a lot of, our local businesses. So kudos to Connie and her crew. They did a great job. And I'm all done.
Councilor Bosco, then Councilor Corsati.
First, I want to say something to my 2 favorite TV viewers tonight. My granddaughter and my grandson are both, Waylon and Charlotte, are watching today, and my wife texted me that they thought it was great watching me on TV, so I love you. I never, through the mayor to town manager, I never received the numbers for the fixed tax increase that we have every year. I got the first ones on labor, and I never got the ones on the utilities and everything else that we have fixed costs, because like everybody says, my taxes go up, but my paycheck doesn't. But what everyone doesn't realize is our expenses go up also. So when we have a small tax increase, usually it doesn't even cover what the automatic increase to our taxes are. So I know with the numbers we got, we have an automatic, so far I believe it was almost 2/3 of a mil increase on just some of the stuff we have. That's when we all have to sit together and start thinking how we're going to shuffle money and make things work, and hopefully that by programs and stuff that we put in, the grand list increases, so that will help everybody with their taxes. So I really need them numbers, and I'd like to get them out. The next thing is we talk about this every so often. We get a big hoopla going, and then we seem to forget about it. The intersection of 191 and Abbey Road, Broadbrook and Abbey. Today there was another accident. I towed a tractor trailer that hit a car that went through the intersection, and we need to get a hold of our state leaders, and they have to do something. Somebody, and it is going to get killed in that intersection. I know we can't do nothing because it's not our road, but we always say we're going to do something. We have meetings with the state, and then we sort of forget because things calm down, and we can't. I mean, it's very, very important. I know we have an election coming up, and that's one of the things we need to make sure we put it on some type of calendar, so as soon as the election comes, we can start again, because I really hate to forget this. We pick up a lot of cars at that intersection, and, you know, you just never know. Someone could get seriously hurt. Other than that, I'm all set.
Council Crisati?
Okay, through the mayor to the town manager, a couple of areas in town that was brought to my attention. The first thing that I'd like to mention, there's some blighted areas on Hartford Avenue. And I'll just give you a specific address, 6062 Hartford Ave. If we could have Blight take a look at that area over there. There's garbage all over the place, and so if we could take a look at that. I'm also concerned about the parking on that street. I see people parking up past the sidewalk, pretty close to where they really shouldn't be. They're not even in a parking area, so maybe we could, take a look at that. And then I've also had some residents also, they're concerned about the speed of cars and trucks that are going down through that neighborhood. All right, so, through Hartford Ave, Lafayette, Bigelow, that area there, if we could, maybe take notify the police, of that, a lot of traffic going through there and high speeds with kids around. So that's the first thing. The second one, on the corner of Enfield Street in Alden. This is back behind the food shelf, behind where the St. Adalbert's apartments are. It was brought to my attention again that there's a homeless person living right by in those dumpsters in the back there, where the where the old state building there was in the back, and it butts up against Mr. Billick's property over there, and you can see like a little camp out area over there. There's garbage all over, bins of clothes there. You got a couch there, and so I just think that maybe we can, find who this person is, and with social services, help them out a little. All right. So I myself tried going down there, see if I could, find them, but I'm not there, late at night. I'll go, during the day. They're out walking around, but that's an area. I have residents who take a real nice, pride in their property on Alden Avenue, right by the food shelf area, and they have kids, and they don't want to see people hanging out there at night, camped out, and it's just not a safe spot. So if we could take a look at that, that would be great. Okay. The other thing I was going to mention, Dinner on the Green. What an event! Oh my God! And for everybody that went, the course, the meals from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I think you were continuously having a course of food coming through. So to all the sponsors and everybody that was involved in that event, it's only going to get bigger and better as time goes on. So to Connie and to EFRC, fantastic job in organizing that event. Also, an event that I went to this past week was the Kite Annual Dinner, which many of us attended. And Commissioner Beth Bai from Early Intervention from the state of Connecticut was there, and she put on a nice presentation, and to Chris Gameau and Leanne Bolio for their awesome night of entertainment and the integration of Head Start with the Early Learning Center and everything that they do. They're all positives for our town, and it's just really nice to be out and about. And my final thing that I'm just going to say about Magic Carpet, I just want to throw this out there, and I think everybody should be well aware that the bus lines have changed, the times have changed, the routes have changed, and I know it threw some people off. I did receive some phone calls saying, how come the bus isn't here, and why isn't the bus over here? So, and I know, I think today they finally changed the website in terms of the actual real schedule. So, so I just want to throw that out there, and because it did make some people a little nervous in terms of the route changes, especially between the blue into the yellow, and so, but that's all I have to say for tonight, and Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Sferrazza?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know it was a couple weeks ago, but I just wanted to take a minute to let everybody know and to thank our town manager and our town staff for the economic breakfast that was held at Nantucket Community College. The theme was Enfield is open for business. It was 200 people in there, developers, bankers, realtors. And, you know, I think what the message was that we talked about our TIF district. We talked about how we've redeveloped or reorganized our building department. We're trying to streamline things. We're trying to attract businesses here. And we all know how important that is. And I got to tell you, Chris, having that event, and I look at the surrounding towns, and I don't see anybody doing anything. That was tremendous. It put us on the map. The governor attended, and it was just a great day. I know a lot of work went into that. And kudos to you and all the staff that was there.
Councilor Muller?
I just want to let everyone know October 10th is Mental Health Awareness Day. It is Nantucket. Swing by Tower Lobby to participate in games, painting, and education on mental health awareness. I also attended the Table to Dinner, the Farm to Table, and I want to give a shout out to Connie Provancher of ERFC for organizing a wonderful Farm to Table dinner fundraiser on the green. Thank you.
Anyone else? I just have two quick things. Again, I love this time of year. The folks doing a great job decorating their houses. I mean, some of the Halloween stuff, I think it's great. Again, you don't need to go anywhere. Hop your kids in the car, go buy a coffee and drive around town, because I tell you, there's some great presentations out there. And it's just, it's great to see people get into it, and it makes this town, again, very special. And I think the other thing I want to publicly announce, I've made the pledge. Well, we had the fun day on the green a couple weeks ago. Everyone in town should be taking the play pledge. Please reach out to the kite folks, Jen Manicuse and Jen Ryan. I mean, we all could use a little more fun in our lives. We all could use a little more play in our lives. And obviously it benefits our kids. So I recommend everyone making the pledge. And again, have a little fun once in a while. Town manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sort of taking them in order. We haven't forgotten Councilor Susak. I have passed on to Lori Whitten your request, and she informed me as of our last meeting. We'll remind her again tomorrow. They were just interviewing the consultants. So when the person is chosen, she will have that discussed and see if your request can be put into the proposal. So we haven't forgotten, and we'll remind her again tomorrow. And Councilor Bosco, in regard to the fixed costs, I talked to Mr. Wilcox today because I know we had passed you most of the information, and he informed me today that he was awaiting what you just requested today. We had a staff member in that department who was out on a family death for a week, so he'll have that information to you this week. And in regard to 191 in Abbey, we will follow up. We have a good rapport with our state reps and senators. We're in constant contact with them these days, so we'll put that on the agenda, make sure we follow it up, and make sure that DOT is aware of our concerns. I would just say, too, in regard to any blight, as you could see from this evening's executive session, we had 7-8 matters on for our outside attorney to come in and report, all of them virtually connected to blight. We've been very robust in our enforcement of blight in the town. We're starting to see dividends, not only those properties that we're moving on that were of the worst in the top 10, but also there are properties that we're in the final stages of going out to bid that we'll actually be demolishing properties that are of the worst condition in town and putting those back on the market through our realtor to have people come in and actually put up a good replacement property that will get back on the tax rolls and alleviate the condition for those people in those neighborhoods. So we're very actively pursuing blight. I would say to individuals too, if you see blight, you're obviously feel free to talk to your council person, but you should be comfortable enough to call my office or call into the development services. This council put resources. We changed some funding, didn't spend any more, but we added an additional blight person. We have 3 blight officers who are very well versed, who are very active and busy in enforcing blight. So if anybody out there sees blight in their neighborhood, you can go through your council person, but also feel free to contact us directly, and we immediately put it on the list for the blight officers to go out and see if there's any violations, and they take immediate action. I would just like to say, and there had been a press release put out by the state, and also we had done it as well, but I can't overstate the importance. We received a $175,000 grant from the Department of Housing. Nelson Teresa had put in for that grant, and it's going to benefit over 83 homes down in Laurel Court to upgrade all of the electrical boxes and electrical into those homes. It's a significant investment in that community. We had actually put in more. 4 more. It's going to cost about $230,000. The Housing Authority is going to do about $25,000, and we have other available funds in revolving over $200,000. The state specifically said, interestingly enough, that they would have given us more. But these other funds the town has not used in many years. They've sat there. They want us to dip into those funds and use them, and they'll replace them. They're very committed to housing in this administration, so we're going to take them up on that, and we'll be applying for more grants. But they want to see that the stockpile, as it were, our reserves are being used, so they cut back a little so that we'll dip into that fund, and then they said come back for additional funding when you need it. I'd also like to say, and I think it's probably one of the perhaps only programs I'm aware of that Nelson has pursued as well, and we discussed it at the business breakfast. It's the first-time home buyer program in Enfield. Very excited to announce that over $100,000 in funding that we have currently. We have $25,000, $75,000 is going to be transferred from the state, but it's for first-time home buyers anywhere in the town. And you get up to $10,000 if you are a first-time home buyer. There are some conditions to those who are conservative. It's a loan. It's put on the end of the property so that when you go to sell it later or it's completely paid off, it would be repaid then. But this will allow up to 10 new families to buy homes in this town this year. And again, the state has said they will replenish it and give us another $100,000. So we're going to start off at $10,000 and see. I think that's a generous amount for the first time for all of the closing costs, and maybe then we'll adjust it to perhaps if they need less, if it's 5,000 or 6,000, we could increase it to 20 people to buy new homes in Enfield. We have three banks. We have 3 banks that are going to participate in the program. They're very excited. It's on our website. We're up and running, taking applications, and it'll be on a first-come, first-served basis.
So, Chris, where specifically on a website?
It'll be on the manager's website as of tomorrow, and also on the development services. And we do have flyers that we'll be disseminating in other areas too.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think you mentioned 3 banks. I mean, I think if you could, I don't know if you can say the names if it's public yet, but I think
I'll defer that. It'll be in there. But we had 2 on the morning of the breakfast, and we have a 3rd that's come in, and they're very excited.
Which is great.
The state
being corporate partners with the town of Enfield.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the state was very impressed with the initiative as well. So again, I think I thank Carl for his mentioning the business breakfast. All of these things were highlighted. We brought together almost 200 business people. It was an amazing turnout to introduce our staff and all of the initiatives such as these that we're doing. I can't tell you the feedback we've had from business people and meetings that it's generated, that we're just surprised at how much we're doing and the development and the interest in the town of Enfield. As you said, it was important to hear the governor. He was here. He took a walk the week before he came and walked and met with local businesses. We showed him down by the platform in the train station. Of course, we're very keenly interested in moving forward on that. I think he was very impressed with our plans and our program, which is a model for the state. We're willing to help and put some skin in the game. And as he said at the breakfast, not many communities or people are willing to do that. They just are asking for money, but they're not really willing to put up a commitment. And we've worked hard towards that. We'll have more information in the next few weeks. But I will just say that we also, in addition to having the governor, we had the Commissioner of Labor, and we have a meeting with him coming up. He reached out to me. They have apprenticeships and they have paid internships. So we not only had the governor, we had the Commissioner of Labor in town, who was very impressed with the turnout and what we're doing. We had the Commissioner of Education, the State Commissioner of Education, because again, we think this is a partnership with one of the themes we had was education is economic development. We had Chris Drezik speak. The business community was a little surprised by that, to have that component at a business breakfast, but they understand that education and the cost that we commit to it each year is a big commitment. And so the more we do to invest in that, the better off our community is. And we also had the Commissioner of Higher Education for the entire state university system that attended as well. So it was a wonderful showcasing of Iznuntuk, their manufacturing program. I will just tell you that we had Enfield High students, their catering program, catered it for us. We had their string quartet play music for us. We had an Enfield High student sing the national anthem. It was one heck of a morning. I'll tell you, it really made Enfield proud. And as you said, Carl, it was Enfield is open for business. We have the resources, we have the staff and the commitment, and we're going to be moving forward. So I think it was a great morning. I thank you all for attending, and I'd just like to thank the staff. It was a lot of additional hard work we put in to get that and to make sure it was a success. And I'd like to thank Lori Witten, her team, for their presentations, their wonderful presentations. Sue Roach in her office did an incredible job helping getting the invitations out. I mean, we sent them, we said save the date, and then we told them the date's next week, and then we said it's on Friday, it's Monday, and Monday before the Tuesday, we said see you in the morning. So we didn't leave any stone unturned. So I thank Sue Roach. And then in my office, Kasha, she did a tremendous job helping with the organization and the agenda and with the talk that we gave. Maya, who also helped quite a bit and came that morning to register, as well as Christy and the other staff from Development Services. And I'll just have to say that Deb McCarthy did an extraordinary job overseeing the whole thing from top to bottom. It took a lot of detail. We joke. We said it was like planning a wedding. And, you're always really nervous the night before, but it was a big relief the next day. So I thank them all for their hard work. And for those of you who were there, I think you'll agree it was a very great morning for the town of Enfield.
Any questions for the town manager? Hearing none, moving on to item 10, town attorney report.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have a formal report tonight.
Any questions for the town attorney? Hearing none, moving on to item 12, old business. On page 1, old business, appointments A, 1, and 2. We have none. Moving on to the top of page 2, old business, appointments 3 through 16. We have none. Moving on to page 3, item B under old business, town manager, appointments 1 through 14. We have none. Moving on to the top of page 4, town manager appointments 15, 16, and 17. We have none. Item C, we have no appointments for P and Z commission appointed, council approved. Item D, discussion of the school roof stays on the table. Item 13, new business, there is, item A, no consent agenda. Item B, appointments 1 and 2, there are none. Item C, appointments, town manager appointed, council approved, again, there are none. Item 13D, appointments, P and Z commission appointed, council approved, again, there are none. Item 14, items for discussion. A, there is no consent agenda. Appointments B, 1, 2, 3, and 4 remain on the table. Item C, town manager appointed, council approved, there are none. Appointments D, P and Z commission appointed, council approved, there are none. And we move on to item 15, right into miscellaneous. And we have item E. Bear with me, let me get there. Item E. A discussion resolution requesting for a transfer of funds for the town clerk of $7,500. Resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the town charter, the following transfer is hereby made. To the town clerk of $7,500 from technical services from general fund revenue, a miscellaneous state revenue of $7,500. Certified that the above-mentioned funds are available by John Wilcox, the Director of Finance. By Councilor Muller.
Second.
By Councilor Grassati. Any questions, or I don't know, Chris, pretty straightforward.
This was a state grant that we applied for. It was awarded. Suzanne will oversee it. And it's listed here, the continued scanning and indexing in the building department of condos, apartments, other structures in towns, and school buildings as they become necessary.
So, Chris, only you did not sign the paper resolution that we have is? I don't know, I may just, someone just make sure before, did John Wilcox signature? Suzanne, anything you want to add, or are you good?
I'm good, thank
You're all
you.
right? Good. Any questions? Want to make sure, that's all. Any questions?
Good.
Hearing none, roll call, please, Suzanne.
Counselor Bosco is out. Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Keiner. Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Counselor Sferrazza.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzanne.
4.
There's 8 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Under miscellaneous, item F, resolution authorizing the town manager to sign and submit a grant application to the State of Connecticut Division of Emergency Management. Whereas the grant provides reimbursement for the emergency management director, partial reimbursement for staff support, and operational expenditures such as office supplies. Resolved that the town manager, Christopher W. Bronson, is authorized to sign and submit the grant application in the name and on behalf of the town of Enfield with the State of Connecticut Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security to affix the corporate seal. Submitted October 7, 2019 by Steve Hall, our Director of Emergency Management. By Councilor Muller.
Second.
By Councilor Crisati. Councilor Sferrazza?
Chris, just a quick question. I don't know if you have the answer or not, but I see it's for $40,000. I know that Steve Hall has been doing this for us for years. He does an outstanding job. I know he has a backup, but between the two of them, I think they're only garnering like $2,000 or $3,000. Would you have a breakdown of where the rest of the money went?
Sure. They do get a stipend, a credit. This grant we apply is about anywhere, as you can see, this year about $40,000. It may seem like deja vu all over again. We did it about 6 months ago. He was a little bit in arrears. That was for last year. This is to bring us current. The budget actually can fluctuate anywhere between 30 or 40 grand. This is a 50% reimbursement towards. They pay for Steve. They pay his entire stipend. We have a number two if he's not available, Todd Cushing out of EMS. They pay 15% towards his. We also have a public information officer. We're in transition. Kasha will be taking over that responsibility, so they'll pay up to 5% of her salary. And also we have a dedicated emergency management dispatcher, Paul Munier. They pay a portion of his salary, and then the balance goes to the Everbridge emergency system. So basically in any given year, we apply for 40. We sometimes get up to 30. The full budget is usually anywhere between 20 or 30, and whatever they give us, it goes into the general fund, and then we reimburse up to 50%. So that's the whole pie.
Yeah, people don't really think of this until it happens, God forbid, but Steve has done a great job with this, all the state bureaucratic pieces he has to put together, and
If you look at the grant, you'd resign. You'd give up the stipend for having to file the grant application with the state that he fills out. It's quite exhaustive. So yes, he does a very fine job.
Councilor Mueller. What?
Oh, sign. Susan has to sign.
Hit your button. Go ahead.
Sorry, Suzanne has to sign.
So there's no signature?
After it's adopted.
Okay, after it's adopted.
Oh, after. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just, yeah, so, right, okay.
Chris needs to sign
as well. Yeah, yeah. Councilor Bosco.
Just excuse me, which one is this?
Emergency management.
Which number?
G. Excuse
Okay.
me, F.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, mine doesn't have. See, now the paperwork they put in front of me doesn't have any of that. Okay. I know which one it is now.
All set. Any other questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Tack it on. Counselor Bosco?
4.
Counselor Sakala?
4.
Counselor Crisati?
4.
Counselor Davis?
4.
Counselor Keiner?
4.
Mayor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Muller?
4.
Counselor Sferrazza?
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak?
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Under miscellaneous, item G, resolution authorizing the town manager or his designee to sign all necessary agreements with Century 21, All Points Realty. Whereas the town released an RFQ for real estate agency services and selected Century 21, All Points Realty to provide the town with same, and whereas on July 1, 2019, the council adopted a resolution number 5118 authorizing the town manager to sign the agreements with Century 21 All Points Realty, but referenced neither other relevant document associated therewithin nor the authority to appoint a designee. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council authorizes the town manager or his designee to sign all the necessary documents with Century 21 All Points Realty in a name on behalf of the town of Enfield, subject and reviewed by the town attorney, submitted by the town manager's office on October 2, 2019. By Councilor Muller, by Councilor Crisati.
Yeah, simply, we had gone out to bid, and we awarded the contract to All Points to be our realtor, and you authorized me to sign that contract with them to do that service for us. But now that they're listing individual properties, much as if you've ever sold a piece of property or a home, they have individual contracts with disclosures. So this is authorizing myself or my designee to sign those for them to enable them to put them on the market.
Yep. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Bosco?
4.
Counselor Sakala?
4.
Counselor Crisati?
4.
Counselor Davis?
4.
Counselor Keiner?
4.
Mayor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Muller?
4.
Counselor Sferrazza?
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak?
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Moving on to item H, request for transfer of funds for the train platform of $670,000. Resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made. From the general fund, $670,000, general fund revenue. to general fund, to the general fund of general fund unallocated transfers to capital of $670,000 from capital reoccurring fund, $670,000 to the capital non-reoccurring fund of $670,000. Certified that the above stated funds are available as of October 2, 2019 by John Wilcox, the Director of Finance.
So moved.
By Councilor Muller. By Councilor Crissati.
This one's not done.
Yeah. None of these are signed. Yeah.
Well, these years aren't.
All right. So, Chris, I mean, I think.
Yes, just
little
briefly.
brief, yeah.
This is just, we put it down for your discussion this evening and your consideration. Basically, as we've been talking about the platform, the state, we've had meetings with them. They think the cost of the actual platform itself would be about $2.5 million. What we've said is that we have a federal earmark, which is outlined here, which is anywhere between $2.5 and $2.8 million, which we believe, after meeting with the FTA and the Greater Hartford Transit District, they'll allow us to use on the east side for improvements on where the platform would be, such as a shelter and sidewalks and parking and a lot of different things, and the bus intermodal system. That's a lot of money that they've allowed us now to switch to that side of the tracks, as it were. This is trying to get money from last year's budget, and we're right at the cusp where the cutoff will be end of year for John to balance the books. So we're just simply taking this amount of money to put in this fund. It in no way encumbers you to do or spend it or to take any action. We will have to come back and see what the Department of Transportation is willing to do. We've not entered into them with any division of what the cost of that platform would be. Certainly, I would prefer, as they've done all across the state and in other communities, they pay for the whole darn thing. But we've evidenced that we are willing to put up and put our money where our mouth is, so we're just funding this. So it's in that fund, and if they then come forward and say, well, what are you willing to do? Well, right now that gives us almost $3.5 million that we're willing to ante up. So we're hopeful that they'll ante up the same and make this a reality. Doesn't encumber you. It doesn't commit you. We'll have plenty of discussion on input and what the cost sharing should be. I just hope that we have an opportunity to have that discussion with them and say, all right, it's a reality now. We're going to break ground in 7 months, and this is our share. This is simply showing that we mean business, that we're willing to commit and to assist and have skin in the game. But again, it isn't anything other than transferring it into a fund which you later can spend for this purpose or redelegate to some other purpose that you deem appropriate if the platform doesn't proceed.
Thanks. Are there any questions? And Chris, just to be clear, the $3 million you mentioned, 2.5 of that is coming from the federal earmark. We just want to make, just for the record, to be clear, that it's not coming out of our local.
No, we have a
Right.
previously, it was when they used to do earmarks. They don't do
Right.
earmarks anymore. This is back in the day when they used to call it, the gravy and pork barrel. And boy, I guess those are the good old days when you could get $2-3 million for a project. And we did. We've spent a certain amount on the west side trying to purchase or remediate the Eversource for a station if we ever get double tracking. We purchased the casket building as well. So we're ready and poised if they do double tracking and at some point want to spend what they're anticipating is $55 million for all of these train stations from Enfield to Windsor Locks to Windsor. But as we've said, we're willing to be much more reasonable. Give us a stop on the rail. Just give us a platform on the east side. So previously, they're very, very particular. When they give you an earmark, those strings that are attached are pretty specific. And it was attached to the west side on the other side of the tracks. Well, there's no train station coming there probably for a long time. So we had a meeting with the federal officials and the state officials and said, could we use it if we get a platform towards our share on this side for all of the things I talked to you, putting a shelter up, the bus turnaround, sidewalks, parking, all of that, all of those improvements now we have in the bank. $2.8 million from the federal government, and you're simply saying, well, we're going to put $670,000 into a town fund so that if it became necessary, we needed it, we would be flush. We have over $3.5 million for the cause, and I think that's enough to build a platform.
Appreciate that explanation. Yep. Anyone else have any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Bosco.
4.
Councilor Sakala.
4.
Councilor Crissati.
4.
Councilor Davis.
4.
Councilor Keiner.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Councilor Muller.
4.
Councilor Serrazzo.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 9 in favor, none against, no abstentions.
Moving on to item 16, public communications. Would anyone like to speak for the council at this time? It's for 3 minutes, so it's a little shorter than it was prior. Going once, going twice. Declare public communications closed. Moving on to 17, councilor communications. Are there any councilor communications? Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I just have one. I know we've done this before, but through the mayor, can we look again at the old business and a lot of the expired commissions? I mean, some of the stuff, they expired in 18, 16. They've been tabled forever. So, you know, just kind of, maybe you have to come back to us and say, look, we can't fill that committee. But also, you on TV land, why don't you take a look? There might be something you're interested in. So, you know, put your application in and, you know, there's a ton of them for, you know, Enfield beautification. And with all this stuff going on, we're going to have to make this place pretty. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn by Councilor Muller, second by Councilor Ferrazza. All those in favor? 9 in favor, 0 against. Good night, everyone. Motion to adjourn.